Welcome to Outside the Box. This is a Stokastic and Fantasy Points collaboration show. We're going to be looking at the tools, the data from both Stokastic and Fantasy Points to find the best plays on the Week 14 main slate on DraftKings. While you're coming in, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Scott, we made 3 lineups on the show last week. We cashed 0 lineups on the show last week. It was not one of our finer weeks in terms of the lineups we had, but we were a little bit pressed for time. We didn't do the full 2-hour show last week, or even an hour and a half. So that's the excuse that I'm making, is just we didn't have the time to put into our lineups after the prior week. We had got one in like 600 something place, so that felt pretty good. And then we saw both ends of the spectrum the past couple of weeks. How are you doing this week?
Yeah, you were saying to me, I think if Minshew had the game he had this week, if he had it last week, we might have won $1 million. So,
yep.
Yeah, bummer. Go ahead.
We would have needed it to be Alec Pierce. And so we had Josh Downs.
Oh, right.
Okay. It ended up being Alec Pierce. So it was.
Well, that's your boy, Alec Pierce, right?
Alec Pierce is. I mean, you did laugh at me. So that is our experience with Alec Pierce. I brought him up 2 weeks ago, and you laughed at me. People in chat loved that you laughed at me for bringing up Alec Pierce. And then last week, Alec Pierce,
there you go,
out of nowhere, was suddenly running every route and getting every catch and looked great.
Well, that's what I was saying. He's Chris Hogan reincarnated. He's just out there getting his cardio in, and he'll like have a spike week every, I don't know, 9th game or so. But I don't know, actually, that now, like, he's kind of interesting. Like, I love Josh Downs this week. I love Michael Pittman this week, but he could throw a wrench into that because the offensive coordinator after the game was just like, yeah, and he's just getting started. Alec Pierce is my guy, like his lack of involvement, that's all on me. But like, this is a new Alec Pierce moving forward. And I'm like, oh damn, because I love me some Josh Downs. I was a little worried about him last week in a reverse slot funnel matchup. Now it's a slot funnel, and then Michael Pittman's just been the dude. So hopefully he just goes back to being, the guy I laughed at you for bringing up. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, he's in play. If you're going to make 150 lineups, make sure there's an Alec Pierce in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's still only, I believe, 3,700. So yeah, still too cheap for the role that he was in last week at the very least. All right, we're no longer doing the Survivor thing, thank God. So we can just
nice.
Do you want to start by taking a look at last week's million?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm curious to see what this looks like.
All right, I'm going to throw it up there. And of course, the thing, one of the biggest talking points last week was Zach Moss, and whether you're going to play Zach Moss. He looked so good. He made it into all of the best, or most of the best, sim lineups. I think that was true for sims across the industry. He just looked fantastic last week. Of course, nobody, I think, had him as high as 65% owned, which is what he ended up at in the Millie. I would say he had a dud of a game, 7.7 fantasy points, but it didn't matter because he was in 65% of lineups. And also, most of the other running backs that you would have played instead of him didn't really do anything anyway. The Pittsburgh guys didn't get there. Who knows if they were hurt at all by Kenny Pickett getting hurt in the first quarter. I don't know that he's that impactful, but neither of them really got home. Ramondre Stevenson got hurt in the first half. So like none of or very few of the running backs who you wanted on last week's slate really did anything. So it didn't really hurt you that much that Zach Moss only put up 7.7 fantasy points. Did not keep Can't Get Right from winning the Millie Maker last week. He had the Purdy stack with Deebo Samuel, no run back from the Eagles. He also had Derrick Henry in there, who I know you brought up as somebody that you loved as a contrarian play off of Zach Moss, and it worked out great. Of course, you could have played Zach Moss too. What stands out to you in this lineup?
Yeah, so I did not make money last week. I went all in on Dolphins onslaughts, which didn't work out well for me. But I mean, so many of these players were players we talked about. I hyped up. Brock Purdy was the obvious must play quarterback for cash. Nico Collins, saying, liked him over Tank Dell, but, obviously ran good with that injury. Yeah. Did say, biggest cheat code in DFS this year is set a rule, must have at least one Texans wide receiver on every single lineup. We talked about Mike Evans. We talked about my boy Greg Dortch made it in this lineup at 2.9. Just saw that. But really this has to be a mea culpa, because What I'm good at is like identifying the best plays. Someone did a study earlier in the year. My article, Scott Barrett Slate Breakdown, has the best track record and hit rate of anything in the industry in terms of predicting players on the winning Millie Maker lineup. Awesome that Greg Dortch registers as a hit for me this week. That's hilarious. But my conviction of here's how I'm playing this slate was wrong. And I think it was, easily wrong post hindsight, but wrong pre hindsight. It's because like my edge is, kind of going against the grain, and your edge as well. And running counter to what you're seeing across the industry, kind of just living in my own bubble, giving my thoughts and analysis. And so what I said was on this show, I said, yeah, obviously Zach Moss is the best value we've seen all season. I'm probably going to have 80%, but on the 20% of lineups, I don't have Zach Moss. I'm going to play 100% Derrick Henry and Michael Pittman, which fucking smashed and was awesome. And if you played that, you would have crushed. Me saying on a show that's called Outside the Box that I'm going to have 80% Zach Moss, I think it's stupid. And I think, part of why I wanted to do this show was to lean more into that contrarian mindset. And it's like, you fade Zach Moss, he flops, which is like totally understandable for a guy who's not that highly involved in the passing game in a close spread. Like I said, I could see Derrick Henry smashing in this contest. And it all going to Pittman as well. He flops. You just wiped out 2/3 of the entire field. I get he's an amazing play, but like that edge is so massive. And this is the Outside the Box show. So throughout the remainder of the year, I'm intentionally going to try to be more contrarian, to live true to the name of the show and the spirit of the show. And I think that's just like where my edge lies as an analyst and as a player. And so I need to lean into that more.
I mean, so to be fair, you did say you kept on bringing up the hypothetical. What if Zach Moss is 70% owned? And I think most of the place I looked had him around 40% projected ownership. So you were closer to the actual ownership on Zach Moss. And we did go over all of the negatives. I laid out, as you said, my Mike Davis story. I went over the Mike Davis story, the reasons that.
Yeah, tell that again, because that should have just swayed me. And by the way, it's not just Zach Moss who flopped his chalk. It's also Tyreek Hill. Yeah. Who was mega chalk, and he's not on this winning lineup.
Oh, that is interesting. Didn't Tyreek Hill have like 2 long touchdowns? I thought he ended up having. Yeah. I thought Tua let down, but Tyreek Hill was actually pretty good.
He was great, but it's also like relative to Debo, relative to Evans, relative to Nico Collins, relative to Sam Laporta. There's another player there, and you really didn't need him.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Because he was chalk. He was also far and away the most expensive wide receiver on the slate.
True. Yeah, good point.
And that forces you into a distinct build. And this lineup went against that.
Yeah, that is true. So this one, the non Tyreek lineup just got his 30 burgers from 3 other receivers instead. Can
I hear your Mike Davis story one more time though?
I mean, it's not a particularly exciting story. I just thought it was a good, what was like right on point with what we had with Zach Moss last week. Just that there was a week, a couple weeks after I won the Millie, so I was feeling, flush with cash, like I could take some more risk than usual, I guess. And also, of course, playing 150 lineup, so you can do a lot when you're playing 150. I just full faded Mike Davis on a slate when he was getting 40+% ownership, and it was just because, I knew he was a great point per dollar play, but I thought there's a real chance that he does not put up a score that you want. So even if he puts up 10, 12 fantasy points, I just thought it's very possible that you're going to have 2 other running backs, maybe 3 to fill the flex, that are going to put up 25, 30 plus fantasy points, where, even though he looks good point per dollar, there's opportunity cost in playing a player like that. So I full faded Mike Davis on the slate. I also got very lucky. So this is a couple weeks after I won the Millie, in that these Stokastic tools then were just giving me a ton of Cole Beasley instead. He was the cheap guy who went completely off that week, and ended up having a lineup that pretty late, I think, had a decent, it was a long shot, but if Chase Edmonds had broke off for a long touchdown, I could have won the Millie again. It was pretty remote chance, but it was, just having that feeling of okay, all I did is made this one choice. That was the biggest stand I took on the slate was fading Mike Davis, and I had a sweat in the Millie, and he was only I think 40 something percent owned, whereas Zach Moss this week, 65%, could have really worked out, but none of the other running backs really did anything anyway. So, yeah, not a particularly great story, just kind of felt on point that it's like, okay, we've got a running back who is in what I thought was a pretty clearly can fail spot. Like he was going up against that Tennessee run defense that is pretty good. He got all the opportunities in the world. Like if you had told me, like, here are all of the opportunities Zach Moss is going to get, I probably wouldn't have faded him in that game last week. But he ended up.
Yeah, I mean, he had 8 opportunities inside the 10-yard line. That was the most of any player in any week this season. 95% snap share. He was obviously a great play, but it's, you know, like the chances of him flopping versus the rewards of him flopping at 66% ownership. I think he was an easy fade or a player to come under on. If there's like any takeaway from your story, or, you know, I guess lessons learned here, it's, you know, scared money don't make money, right? And
Yeah,
one of your best weeks was fading the Mike Davis chalk. There's a great quote I stole from one of your shows, Neil. I forget who said it, maybe you remember, but it's not how often you're right, it's what do you win when you are right.
I want to say that's actually like maybe a Drew Dinkmeyer original. I feel like that's from one of the ETR guys originally, and then I think we stole it from them, maybe. But I mean, it is.
No, it was one of the DFS pros you interviewed. I want to say it was a basketball guy.
Oh, was it Travis Petty?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Could have been Petty, could have been Warren Kosoi. Yeah, I mean, it's regardless, it is a quote that makes absolute sense. Like, it is absolutely correct. It is about what you win when you win. You're just trying to make the most money when you win. And you know, I've said it before, Scott. Like, I think like hot streaks don't, like, theoretically should not exist in DFS, but I think that a lot of times people are willing to take on more risk after they've had success. And as you said, taking on that risk can lead to a lot more success. Like, you need to be in these large field GPPs. Taking on risk is to your benefit. And I think a lot of us, myself included, are more willing to take on that risk after we've had some success. So after you've had a big hit, you're more likely to get more big hits, not because you're running hot, you're thinking clearer. It's just more like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna fade Mike Davis. I'm gonna fade Zach Moss, or whoever it is on a given week, fade the chalk and just get way more different. I think that you're absolutely right that the more risk you're willing to take on, the higher the upside generally for your lineups.
Hell yeah. Again, scared money don't make money. I was actually texting with my buddy Ed Teach a couple of days ago. This is the most profitable NFL bettor in history, I think. Wow. Won over $1 million betting Lamar Jackson to win MVP. I bet that too and told everyone to bet it, but I got capped at like $15 on DraftKings, so didn't win nearly as much. He bet before Tom Brady signed with the Buccaneers. He like flew out to Vegas, bet like as much as he could on Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl. And with both of those bets, as well as like 7 other bets where he won massive on, he never once, you know, cashed out. He never once hedged. Like, he didn't bet for the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And like, dude has like the biggest balls of all time. And just like chatting with him and like reliving those stories, has like reinvigorated me and made me a little more courageous, let's say. So hopefully this translates to a great and profitable week for us on what, to be quite honest, is like not a great slate, but we'll do our best.
Yeah, we'll find some things. There are already some plays that I was looking at this morning that I was thinking, this is kind of an interesting one. Players that I want to hear your thoughts on, because I think that there are some fairly interesting choices to be made at running back, at wide receiver. So, you know, even if it is an ugly slate, maybe we can, you know, make something beautiful out of this slate. All right. Any other notes on this Millie Maker winning lineup?
Probably not. I will just say Detroit stands out to me, and this was another miss by me. And you can say the same thing for Deebo Samuel, where it's like I struggle greatly when doing my write-up with players on the 49ers outside of CMC and players on Detroit, where it's like no individual play stands out as being phenomenal, but I could very easily see one player from, like, that's how I thought about Detroit. It's like one player should be on the winning Millie Maker lineup, but I don't know if it's Laporta or Amon-Ra St. Brown, or if it's Gibbs. Maybe Montgomery has a chance. And so that's another edge to MME players, or I guess if you're a hand builder who's like just, I don't know, more smarter, more rigid, or more organized than I am, you could put that together. But yeah, like Debo had this massive game on like 3 targets and 2 carries.
Yeah.
So insane. And like, that's just been the 49ers offense this year. And it's like, as an analyst, like I have no confidence in picking between Kittle and Ayuk and Debo every week, or Laporta and St. Brown and Gibbs every week. It's just, there's just nothing really there to kind of tip you off. So just sprinkling that in, or kind of spreading out ownership, I think is really smart, and for this week as well.
Yeah, no, I think that is very true. It worked out last week with the Laporta call. Maybe we'll figure out who we want to play from Detroit this week. All right, we just got a projections update 8 minutes ago from Stokastic, so that is good to see.
Nice.
Our tools are updated to the minute. Are you ready to start talking some quarterbacks here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and I'll sort by actually I'll sort by ownership, so we can talk about the chalk to start. Brock Purdy, the pretty clear chalk here. We've got him at 13.3% ownership. Actually looks pretty good. 16% chance of San Francisco being the top stack. Of course, you were just kind of talking about San Francisco and how hard they can be to predict. We can talk about that a little more. And then Cincinnati, Jake Browning coming in at 12% ownership. We've got him with just a 6% chance of being the top stack. So a little bit of negative leverage there. Maybe we'll throw Fields into this mix as well. We've got him at 9.5% ownership. So let's start with these top 3. What do you think of Purdy, Browning, Fields?
Yeah, I think Fields is my favorite quarterback play of the slate, probably both for tournaments and even for cash. I mean, it is really close with Purdy, who, like, he's just my boy. Like, I love him so much. I said all offseason he's the most mispriced player in best ball, and then week 1 in DFS I said he's the most mispriced. Like, it's insulting how DraftKings is treating, and they've done it for 14 straight weeks, and all he's done is deliver, and they refuse to raise his price tag. An argument against him is he really needs to be pushed, and Seattle is just like such a massive run funnel, especially of late, that everything's really pointing to this being a Christian McCaffrey game. But still, yeah, like you're going to need some Purdy exposure. 13% sounds fine. Browning, I get that he's a value, but I mean, like, there's a lot of enticing value plays of the slate. Jay Tribby had a great stat where it's Ritter has been in the winning Millie Maker lineup more often than Mahomes. Him stacked with Pitts and London is still cheaper than Purdy stacked with Ayuk, which is crazy. I mean, Joe Flacco, you can make a case for, especially now with Amari Cooper likely back. And so it's just like the guy who, sucked in his first start, then had like a great game last week. It kind of feels like chasing points a little bit, but I could also totally see how he gets there, and he's a strong value. Dobbs, I really like, he's been super productive for fantasy. He's been really, honestly great. Obviously last game was rough, but now he gets Justin Jefferson back, and it just looks like an awesome situation for him. But if it's not Fields, and it honestly might not be Fields, favorite quarterback play of the slate, certainly based on what you guys are showing, is Josh Allen at sub 5%. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it seems really low for a game that clearly has the possibility of shooting out. Two of the better offenses in the NFL, two of the better quarterbacks, at least in the NFL. 4% ownership, 9.5% chance of being the top stack for Buffalo. We'll, of course, talk about the pass catching options more once we get to wide receivers, but clearly there are some nice ones there in Buffalo. Yeah, looks great to me. I have one of the first places that I saw that I thought this might be contrarian, and it's not extremely contrarian, but the Denver Chargers game to me stood out to me as like, okay, these are just bad defenses. I thought people probably won't want to play Russell Wilson just based on him being Russell Wilson. We do have him getting 7% ownership though, so doesn't look contrarian here, and looks like he's actually coming in over owned. But do you have any interest in either of Justin Herbert or Russell Wilson here?
No, I get it. I think it makes a ton of sense. A lot of upside there. I hate Russell Wilson. I don't think I've played him once this year, but But yeah, no, he makes sense. I think he's fine.
I mean, he's been running more this year. Russell Wilson,
Yeah.
like kind of getting back to his like being willing to run a little
Yeah, but he
bit.
also averages 169 passing yards per game since week 5. And
That's
it's
not
like
great.
he's scoring touchdowns. Also feels a little unsustainable, but that was who he was in Seattle. I don't know. Like I said, I think this is a tough week, and I'm really going to concentrate I might just play only 3 lineups this week. So it probably wouldn't make it on that, but if I played 10, yeah, for sure, you're going to want a game stack for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about quarterbacks, I think this is a good opportunity to bring up this super chat that we just got from James Foster. Thank you, James. James asked, "Hey guys, love the show. Can you do some rain and wind recap in a few of these games?" I think we should just do it while we're talking about quarterbacks. Do you want me to do that, Scott? Do you have thoughts on weather in general or weather in any of these particular games?
Yeah, I did a study a couple years back looking into weather, and for the most part, it's really overrated. Blizzard games do hurt the quarterbacks and pass catchers, helps the the running backs. The one thing I do treat very seriously is like wind, but even then, it's like 20 miles an hour and over. Like 30 plus is really bad. I tend to kind of choose intentionally to underreact to weather rather than overreact, and that's worked out well for me. I'll also say I don't want it to kind of influence my thoughts and process earlier in the week, so it's something I do intentionally ignore until Sunday.
Yeah.
So I barely looked at it.
Yeah, it is one of those things. Like it's so unpredictable. It's hard to know like days ahead of time how the weather is going to impact things. I'll just give a quick recap of the weather games. Looks like in Chicago there are some winds expected. The total has come up throughout the week, so I think that the weather is looking better than it was earlier in the week, as Greg was pointing out on our earlier show. So yeah, a little bit of weather to look out for in Chicago. Something to pay attention to tomorrow. Looks like there's a little bit of rain in Cleveland. Doesn't look too bad though. Not too rainy, not too windy, just a little bit. Some winds in Cincinnati, but nothing too crazy. 10 to 20 miles per hour. In New York for the Jets game, doesn't look like any major concerns there. Just something to pay attention to. Looks like the worst weather we have is in Baltimore, where we are expecting probably some rain, winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. So a little bit of wind there, not quite too low. I think I don't remember where I heard this, but I feel like I've heard like above 15 miles per hour is where you generally start thinking about winds a little bit more. Do you know anything about like the level of winds before you start to really be concerned about it, Scott?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up that study I did.
Okay. I believe that's what I've heard is like over 15 miles per hour is where it starts to affect things more. I don't know the exact number, but none of these are like crazy high wind games. They're all like 15 miles per hour approximately. Baltimore looks like it is the worst of it. I will, you know, generally the
Yeah,
totals are going to reflect the wind, and then the projections are going to be affected by those totals. So it's all sort of accounted for in the data. So it's why one of the reasons I don't usually think about it a ton. But did you find your data?
yeah, winds 10 to 19 miles an hour like have basically no impact on the skill position players. Kickers are hurt the most, but for quarterbacks, it's like they score on average less than 0.4 fantasy points per game below their expectation. But then when you talk about 20 miles an hour and over, it's minus 1.7 fantasy points per game below their expectation. Running backs get a slight bump. Tight ends and wide receivers lose almost a point versus their expectation. So again, yeah, the threshold for me is about 20 miles an hour.
I will say, somebody in chat just said Baltimore DST. Brad says Baltimore DST is going to feast. This stat, Warren Sharp, this tweet just came across my timeline, so I thought I would read it. Stafford has not played in the rain since 2017. He's 1-5 in the rain. He has 10 touchdowns with 12 interceptions in those games. that's a pretty small sample size. If you want to factor that in, go ahead. But yeah, if you factor in, maybe Baltimore looks a little bit better as a result of the weather. But yeah, in general, I'd say monitor the rain in Baltimore, monitor it in Chicago, Cleveland, New York. Those are really the only spots that I have any concern over, and nothing looks too bad to me at the moment. All right, back to quarterbacks. You say you have. Sounds like you're more interested in Josh Allen than Patrick Mahomes. Is that mostly just due to the ownership? I mean, we have the same odds of being the top stack on both of them, but 8.5% going to Mahomes, 4% going to Allen. So is that the main reason you like Allen better?
No. I like Allen straight up, and ownership makes it a no-brainer.
Okay,
but Mahomes is fine. He was high on my list, but definitely prefer Josh Allen.
Okay.
He's averaging 4 fantasy points per game more than any other quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is like the QB 17 since week 8. This is a do or die game for Buffalo, where he's going to put the team on his back. Highest upside of any quarterback in fantasy. He just shreds the Chiefs historically, always with 300 plus passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a bunch of stuff on the ground. You could say this is a tough matchup, but high level quarterback play is kind of sticky, irrespective of matchups. And then look at the matchup. Okay, Aiden O'Connell had a career best performance 2 weeks ago. He looked honestly good. Jordan Love tore them up last week, and tough matchups don't really matter as much for elite quarterbacks, and especially hyper mobile quarterbacks. So, love Josh Allen.
We just got the news that Dawson Knox has been activated to the 53-man roster. Does that affect your interest at all? Does it? It's hard to know what to do with that information. Does this hurt Dalton Kincaid at all? Does Dawson Knox become available? Does it just kind of make two go from one, good pass catching option at tight end to basically nobody who looks that great?
Yeah, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but it does inject a massive amount of uncertainty.
Yeah.
This offense has looked so much better running almost exclusively 11 personnel. When Knox was healthy and there was a different offensive coordinator, it was 40% of the time. And so just on the chance that they go back to that, or even go back to it at just half of the rates they were using previously, it really hurts Dalton Kincaid. It means he's on the field a whole lot less. It really hurts Khalil Shakir, who was just about a full-time player in recent weeks and looked awesome and has the nuts covered shell matchup this week. It helps Stephon Diggs. He's twice as efficient in 12 personnel as opposed to 11 personnel. That's a function of lesser target competition. And that's generally true for most receivers, but it's especially true of Stephon Diggs this season. The problem with him is he's going to draw L'Jarius Sneed's shadow coverage, and Sneed has just been an absolute baller this year. But Kansas City is very weak on the perimeter, opposite L'Jarius Sneed. So I actually like Gabe Davis this week. If you look at what Kansas City is giving up to wide receiver 2s this year, 22 points to Christian Kirk, 15 to Allen Lazard, 18 to Jordan Addison, 133 yards to Josh Palmer, 99 yards to Devonta Smith, 20 to Jacoby Myers. And then last week, 27.6 to Christian Watson. That's Green Bay's wide receiver 1, but for whatever reason, they had Sneed shadow Romeo Doubs. So I'm counting him as their wide receiver 2. And then let's not forget, the 60 burger that Gabe Davis put on Kansas City a couple of years ago in the playoffs. But yeah, if you wanted to go here in the fantasy points data suite, advanced receiving, if you wanted to do all weeks, regular season, yeah, that's fine. And then go to you didn't have to click on Stephon Diggs. Click on the box next to his name.
Oh yeah, I see.
And then go to split or filter, then split personnel.
Where are we?
Right there, up offense personnel.
personnel.
Yeah, you could honestly do this for all the receivers because they all have dramatic splits, whether in 11 personnel or 12 personnel. But yeah, so let's Stephon Diggs in 11 personnel. Can I see yards per route run? I don't know if you can make your screen. Just remove the filter. All right, there we go. Yeah, so 3.31 yards per route run in 12 personnel, and it was like 1 point something in 11 personnel. So again, more than twice as efficient in 12 personnel. So arguably getting Dawson Knox back helps him. The issue again is, well, L'Jarius Sneed. Diggs typically a baller against man coverage and does better than most in shadow situations, even tough ones, but it does throw a wrench into it. Would be way more excited. I mean, I still love Josh Allen. It's just he's easier to stack if Knox was inactive.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I figured I'd bring it up while we're talking about Josh Allen.
But maybe Joe Brady just sticks to what's working. Like he should. Like that's what I would do if I were him.
I know that's what I'm not sure. I just don't know if they're going to mix things up. I mean, I guess the Bills have not been great this year. Like they're kind of borderline playoff team. That well, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Dawson Knox if they do actually like use him like they had been in the past. But yeah, I agree. It's a variable that was not there before. Just kind of throws a wrinkle into what would have been a great environment for DFS for the Bills offense. So that kind of hurts a little bit, but
yeah. And meanwhile, it's like so much easier for Mahomes. It's like, oh, Rashee Rice, duh. And then you lose Isaiah Pacheco. Arguably or theoretically, that should mean Chiefs lean more pass heavy. They use McKinnon more as an extension of their running game with these short little dump offs through the air, which are just free fantasy points for Mahomes. And like you could easily see him getting some shovel pass touchdowns. And you could stack him with McKinnon for sure, or maybe CEH. Because we don't have a ton of trust in McKinnon's usage coming off of injury. And Rashee Rice is obvious, but that's also an obvious bring back for Josh Allen. You could play Kelsey as well on Mahomes lineups, but I do prefer Rashee.
Oh, interesting. All right. So you'll play some that have Mahomes with no Kelsey, just with Rashee Rice.
I don't know. If you play Mahomes, do you need to dub stack it? I do like the idea of a dub stack with McKinnon and Rashee. It's like, like Kelsey obviously can always just break the slate, but this isn't the same Kelsey as last year. Where Kelsey last year, the year before that, was a mid-range wide receiver one, producing mid-range wide receiver one, priced as like a mid-range wide receiver two, has the typical volatility of a tight end, but like that's just such a cheat code when the tight end position is an otherwise dumpster fire. But this year, other tight ends are stepping up, especially relative to price. Trey McBride, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, a few other guys like that. And Kelsey's kind of, I don't want to say he's lost a step, but like the dude is talking about retirement, and Rashee Rice has out targeted him in back-to-back games. And so that's an important data point you got to look at.
Yeah, no, for sure it is. Yeah, I mean, it's rare that I want to play Mahomes without Kelsey, but yeah, it does seem at least viable to play Rashee Rice and Jerick McKinnon maybe as a stack. I was just, one of the things that I talked about with Greg earlier was it's not a pretty tight end slate. Like there aren't that many tight ends that are just like, oh yeah, at that price point, he's a great play. So it's easy to want to pair Mahomes with Kelsey just to kill two birds with one stone. Just like, yeah, it's an easy pairing there, but yeah, makes some sense to go different routes. Also, what about Detroit? Any interest in 1.7% owned Jared Goff against Chicago here?
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, it's a road game, which is never ideal. The splits there are like legitimately bad. But I love Justin Fields, and we know that opposing quarterbacks are positively correlated together. Plenty of times this season, we've seen one chalky quarterback and one low-owned quarterback in the same game, and then it's the low-owned quarterback who winds up on the winning Millie Maker lineup. I could see that happening. Detroit's offense looks like a juggernaut. And so yeah, I mean, I definitely still prefer Fields a lot, but at that ownership, I think he's a strong play.
Okay. Yeah, that is. And we'll talk about how Chicago's defense over the past 5 has looked a little bit worse against the slot. That's one of the contrarian plays that I want to bring up at wide receiver and get your thoughts on. Yeah, it's a tough matchup. Over the past 5 weeks, Chicago has been pretty good against quarterbacks, toward the bottom of the league in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points per game allowed. So it's a tough spot by that metric, whereas obviously Fields, fantastic matchup here. Let's see. Do we have any other quarterbacks? I mean, you gave your thoughts on Russ. You think it sounded like Herbert, you think, is also in play?
Yeah, again, it's just stacking that game because there's a lot of upside there, and like kind of feels easy getting the pieces to that where it's Keenan Allen and Sutton. But I probably won't have exposure to either quarterback. But yeah, again, obvious upside for sure. Just
since you were just talking about, often you see a chalky quarterback, a low-owned quarterback in the same game. We've seen it several times where the low-owned quarterback goes off. Should we just be going to Minshew here? I mean, we've got everybody going to Browning 12%. Minshew is coming in at 4.2%. I guess you already did talk about your interest in the pass catchers at the top of the show to some extent. What is your level of interest in playing Colt stacks this week?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, if at ownership, Minshew's probably a better play than Bengals. Or actually, you know what? He definitely is, because then you factor in the leverage you gain on an uber chalky Zach Moss. I told you I love Josh Downs. I love Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce, I said, is in play. He smashed last week. Would have won us a Millie Maker almost if it happened the week before that. Yeah, so he's an awesome play. For sure. There's just like a lot of these guys like that. Like I said, I might just be a 3 lineup player this week, in which case it's probably Fields, Josh Allen, and then I don't know, whatever, maybe Purdy or whatever works with the rest of my build. Geno Smith, we based on this thesis we're saying about opposing quarterbacks being highly correlated, he's seriously hurt, but so are the running backs. We saw a spike week from Metcalf. JSN almost scored 25 fantasy points, if not for a play negated due to penalty. Bring him back with McCaffrey. All these guys are in play, but again, my conviction plays would be Justin Fields and Josh Allen. Probably Josh Allen more now, staring at ownership.
Okay, makes sense. Any other quarterbacks that you want to talk about, or should we move on and talk about some running backs?
CJ Stroud at 0.1%. I mean, he should not be. He's basically been Dak Prescott, and it's like, I don't care what the matchup is. Like, I don't care that he lost Tank Dell. Like, there's a way better than 0.1% chance he smashes. Again, not a player I probably have exposure to. I just think you can capture all that upside by playing Nico. But 0.1% is just objectively bad. Derek
Carr against Carolina?
No, I think he's seriously hurt. The last time we saw him seriously hurt, Alvin Kamara had 14 targets, and I don't think any other player had more than 2 catches. And he gets pulled at the red zone. Well, I guess Taysom Hill's questionable.
Sure.
I will say Bryce Young is like mega popping by all of our coverage shell stuff, but have no faith in him.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going back there anymore. Maybe, it's late in the season. Maybe I should be going back to Bryce, but I don't think I'm getting there.
I mean, they're just so run heavy now. Like they'll run the ball on first down, gain -2 yards, and then run the ball on second down and gain -2 yards. And they'll just do that every single drive. They just don't want it in his hands.
Yep. All right. I'm going to pull up the running backs in the boom bust tool, just refreshing, because I know, we got an update right before the show started. So we'll have updated ownership, updated projections, all of that for our running backs here. Reminder, if you want to have access to these same tools, they are available in the description of this video. You can find all of the Stokastic packages, or at least some of the Stokastic packages. Any of them will include any of the outside of the lineup generator independent package, any of the like Sims packages. These are included, the Boom Bust, the Top Stacks tool. So that is all in the chat, as is a link to Fantasy Points, where you can get access to the data suite. You can get access to this schedule adjusted Fantasy Points grid, tons of other information there also. So and any links that you want to check out, anything that we're showing from Stokastic or Fantasy Points, it is in the link in the description of this video. I'm going to sort by ownership for the running backs, and we have Zach Moss as, once again, the chalkiest running back on the slate, 28%. Let's go individually, since we have a few here that are getting pretty mega ownership here. Zach Moss, 28%. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's just wrong. We have him at 39%, and I think that's right. I think he's going to be uber chalky again this week, and rightfully so. I mean, like we said, like it probabilistically, like with that volume, way more often does he score 30 DraftKings fantasy points than he scores 7.7. Usage and volume is insane, but you know, as we saw, game script could be an issue. Lack of target volume could be an issue. And so like I said, last week, fade him, play, or not fade. I said on lineups, you don't have him, play Derrick Henry and Michael Pittman. Well, guess what? On lineups, you don't have him this week, play Joe Mixon and play Josh Downs or Michael Pittman. And I'm gonna have way more lineups, or I would want way more lineups without Moss than, I can't believe I said 80% last week, but yeah, definitely you stand to gain a massive edge on the field if he is 39% owned, which I think he will be. And he has the game he had last week. So
yeah, 39% ownership, he would be tough for me to play at 5,900. At the 28% that we have him at, and of course, nobody knows for sure what his ownership is going to net. I don't mind him at 28%. I do think, you know, just seeing the usage that he had last week, like if he has those same opportunities that he had last week, this week against the Bengals defense instead of Tennessee, much better spot. I would expect him to convert more of those opportunities. So yeah, I have interest at this level. If he's going to be 39% owned, of course, our ownership projections update throughout the weekend. So who knows where we'll be come Sunday morning. I think part of it, his ownership not getting too crazy, in part because, you know, we've got a little bit of ownership going to the Chiefs guys. We've got some other options on the slate. And of course, it does help that he is up from, everybody played him at 4,600. He failed them at 4,600, put up 7.7 fantasy points. Now he's 1,300 more expensive after he failed everybody. His ownership might not get too out of hand. It'll be interesting to see. It's hard to predict ownership in a 200,000 entry field, but yeah, I think that he is certainly, to me, it's a better spot than last week. The salary reflects that. It'll be ownership will dictate, I think, whether he ends up being a good play in the post contest sims. But totally,
no, again, he's an amazing play. Like according to my model, he's mispriced by $2,400 on DraftKings. So like, greatest value of the season was Zach Moss last week. Second greatest value of the season is Zach Moss this week. Again, it really just comes down to like, well, you can just wipe out 40% of the field if he flops. Like I said, I'm probably doing 3 lineups this week. I'll have 1 Moss, maybe 2 if he like fits a perfect lineup. But like I said, I'm trying to be bold this week, trying to be I don't know, more courageous and more contrarian.
All right. Well, then we'll keep moving down those. See what running backs you're going to be more courageous and contrarian with. McCaffrey, the second highest ownership coming here, 27% ownership. We have him optimal 25% of the time. San Francisco has the highest implied team total on the slate by far. What are you doing? What are you doing, McCaffrey? Are you playing him? Or are you stacking him with Purdy when you do play him? What do you think?
Yeah, so like 4 weeks ago, or 5 weeks ago, I wrote up, and I wrote up every week since then that like I don't know why McCaffrey's not 33% owned every single week, and that's like finally been the case the last 2 weeks. But it's also like in weeks without Tyreek Hill, that probably means he should be 40% owned. And this is like an amazing spot. Seattle, massive run funnel. There's also Elijah Mitchell is doubtful. So like, it's just an absolute nut spot for McCaffrey. Not really much to say there. He's just an amazing play. But maybe like last week, it's like Zach Moss plus Christian McCaffrey is going to be such a popular build. Maybe there's ways to go around that. I know Big T is a big legendary DFS player, big just punt running back to the best of your ability and then pay up elsewhere. So, that would be an interesting, unique build. And we do have that value this week with some cheap running backs. So
it's funny because I'm inclined to do the opposite this week. I'm inclined to
up
at running back and go try to find some cheap value at wide receiver, in part because I think the better cheap running backs for the most part are getting some ownership this week. So for this week, I feel like I kind of like the pay up options at running back, but we'll keep certainly one way to go is to punt running back.
Ignoring ownership, I would have wrote up Zach Moss is the best play of the slate. Christian McCaffrey is the second best play of the slate.
Just based on what you expect from them at their salary.
Yeah.
We did not have this earlier. Bijan Robinson, now we have up to 22% ownership, 14.5% chance of being optimal. What do you think of Bijan?
Yeah, he's a great value. I will say if you want to poke holes in him, this is the top pass funnel matchup. Vita Vea is questionable, which means he might play. And I know he's like a great run defender, but he's still only one player. It's also Arthur Smith. And Bijan's volume is picked up, but like his usage stats have all stayed the same. He is more involved in the red zone, which is big for sure. But nothing else has really improved. It's just like Atlanta going uber run heavy. And this is a matchup that implies maybe you don't go that route. But I wrote up Bijan as like a sick value for sure.
All right. So good value. Now he is getting a bit of ownership. All right. We got another super chat. So we'll talk about this. Brian says, is Zach Wilson stack with Garrett Wilson and Xavier Gipson too contrarian? I think so. I don't think I would go there. But it is kind of an ugly slate. Do you think that is too contrarian, Scott?
Yeah. Zach Wilson's best ever game was 23 fantasy points through 31 starts. Jake Browning had way more than that. Will Levis, way more than that. Mike White, way more than that. Jared Stidham, bunch of guys with only like 7 career starts. So I wouldn't go that route, but you never know. Like you said, it is a gross slate.
Yeah, like if you're playing 150 and you want to try that in a couple, sure, but like in general,
part of the problem is like I'm not seeing a ton of players like you have to pay up for that. Like Christian McCaffrey, sure. Keenan Allen, okay. And I don't know that you really need the salary savings.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what Xavier Gipson's route participation ended up at last week. So let's see. And target share. So yeah, just 65% of routes last week. So was this the
other guy I laughed at you about, or was that Brownlee?
Probably Brownlee. I feel like Brownlee might have popped a little bit, and then he of course goes back to playing 33% of routes. Gibson, I was interested in for a couple weeks. One of them was a showdown slate though. So yeah, I mean it's if you want to double stack the Jets, I think those are probably the two you do it with. I guess Conklin is there also tight end eligible, so that helps. But yeah, I don't think that I am going there this week. In like a Millie setting, I don't know that anything is necessarily like, it's hard to be like too contrarian with guys who are, actually getting playing time, have some opportunities. But to me, I don't think I would go there with the Jets. All right, let's move back to running backs. Wait. All right. And then finally, Joe Mixon is the other above. I mean, I guess, man, we've got Javonte right there as well. So I think we have two more that we need to talk about, maybe poke holes in. Starting with Joe Mixon against the Colts. He's 6,100. We've got him at 21% ownership. What do you think of Mixon?
Yeah, it was weird. Chase Brown mixed in more last week, but Mixon still had his second best game this year by XFP, best game by production. Maybe that feels like chasing points, but I like him just because you have Moss lower than we do, and you have Mixon higher than we do.
Yeah.
I really liked him as a leverage play in a great matchup off of Moss, and is the Bengals backup quarterback gonna be as prolific as he was last week? Generally, you kind of want to play it more conservative and lean more run heavy with backups. But yeah, I like him. But again, I'm showing different ownership projections on our site. Javonte Williams, I don't think is a good play at 20%, because he's been 20% for each of the past whatever many weeks, and each week he's failed, except for the weeks where I got it right, which is always this is who he is. He's one of the most game script sensitive players in football, just like Josh Jacobs, where if Broncos win by 6 or more points, he's going to smash. Stack him with the defense. He's going to smash. Great play. Any other scenario, he flops. And even smash for Javonte Williams, I don't know that that's a tournament winning score. I just mean he'll probably hit value. So I'm not really into him in that ownership, but I did write him up. If you're stacking with Denver's defense, I think that makes sense. But not super high. Same for Josh Jacobs, by the way. I don't think the Raiders win this game. I don't think he's a good play. But maybe he breaks off a long run.
See, I think I have more interest in Javonte than you do. I think maybe just because I like that game environment so much, and I'm probably overplaying the Denver Chargers game environment. But 5,800, maybe Denver could win the game. So I like your idea of also pairing him with the defense there. That does make sense to me, to pair Javonte with the defense. Maybe a little bit more interest than you have definitely more interest than you have in Javonte. But yeah, 20% ownership does seem, not that exciting to me. All right.
Yeah, they're 2.5 point dogs. Raiders are 3-point dogs. Where that spread is close enough. You could definitely see them winning that game. Ideally, you wanted them to win decisively, but yeah, just they're high upside GPP bets. They're not as good of a play as their ownership suggests. Stack them with the defense. That's my take.
All right, fair enough. All right, now I guess we can. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 4,200. What are you doing with the Chiefs running backs, Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon? How much interest do you have?
Yeah, I don't know why CEH isn't where Bijan is in terms of ownership. He's 4,200. That's absolutely nothing. The beat writer said CEH was RB1 all week in practice. McKinnon's not fully healthy. They're going to take it easy on him. I think he's a lock for 16 touches on in a game environment, everyone, or the best game environment of the slate. I know he's a jag, but 4,200 for 16 touches on a Chiefs offense. I just don't see any way he hurts you. I think he's a great play. I also like McKinnon a lot though, just because we've seen an insane upside for him. And even if he's just the red zone option, there's massive upside there just because, the Chiefs go to the red zone so often, and then Mahomes with his cheat code shovel passes. So you could definitely play both in tournaments. I will say I'm leaning more towards CH.
Would you play both of them together in tournaments?
Probably not.
Okay. I'm just thinking
but I can see it. I can
combined,
see it.
they're only 9,000. So they're combined, they're cheaper than Christian McCaffrey's. They of course also take up 2 lineup spots. So
yeah, they're not going to outscore Christian McCaffrey combined though. I don't think.
You don't think so? You think McCaffrey outscores? It is. It seems
sure.
likely. I'm sure McCaffrey projects better than the two of them combined. So yeah, that's not I guess a hot take. And I was just noting here, I don't think of Buffalo as being a good spot for running backs, but over the past 5 weeks, They are, what is this, like 8th in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to running backs. So they have been allowing some fantasy points to running backs, and in particular through the air, looks like most of those points. So that's kind of interesting. All right. Alvin Kamara, you like Rachaad White every week. Can I assume you like Rachaad White again?
Yeah, every single week I've been saying like most consistent player in fantasy. He's finished top 13 in DraftKings fantasy points in, I don't know, 7 straight weeks now. He's only finished inside the top 9 once when he led the position in fantasy points that week. But the thing is, I've constantly saying really good value, great cash play. I quibble with his upside for tournaments, but this isn't really a week where you need to do that. So fine play for tournaments. Alvin Kamara, I think is interesting for sure. What did I say last time? Derek Carr was this badly banged up, like he couldn't throw it farther than 10 yards downfield. Kamara racked up 14 targets, 12 catches. No Taysom Hill, ideally more red zone work. Leads the position in XFP per game. Rashid Shaheed is out. Michael Thomas is out. Chris Olave missed practice all week with an illness. Like there's a chance he gets like 16 carries plus like wide receiver 1 target volume. Probably not if Olave plays, but I see the upside there. I think he's interesting.
Yeah, great matchup against Carolina. To me, like he's one of the better. Like when I talk about, I like to pay up at running back. This, like he's who I'm talking about. McCaffrey, Kamara, both look fantastic to me. So that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, so last week, Scott, you teased your favorite running back or your second favorite running back on the slate. You did not give us the goods on the show, but I went back and I read your article, so I know who you liked last week against the Ravens. Wait, do I have it backwards? Last week we had Kyren Williams against the Ravens. This week it's the Browns. Do I have that right? No, the opposite. Last week it was the Browns. Yeah. This week it was the Ravens. You liked Kyren Williams last week, and he had a pretty good fantasy game in that game, despite the really tough matchup. He has pretty elite usage. What do you think of Kyren this week?
Yeah, I think he's an awesome play. Should be, 3 times as owned as you guys are projecting. But I think you're right. I think it's going to come in at like 7%, which just like doesn't really make any sense. He's been the closest thing in the game to Christian McCaffrey this year. Leads all running backs in snap share. Leads in red zone XFP per game, ranks 3rd in fantasy points per game. Basically the Todd Gurley role. And like, if you'll remember from the Todd Gurley days, his matchups don't matter. He just gets his points. And so, I really love him. Sean McVay hypes him up nonstop. They asked him why they let him score that touchdown in garbage time last week. And he was like, because Kyron's on my fantasy team. And that's like legit how he's running this offense, is as if though Kyron is on all of his fantasy teams. I do think you can worry about the matchup though here, just because the Rams implied point total is 37% less than their average points per game. But factor in ownership, like easily one of my favorite running back plays of the slate.
All right. I figured you would like Kyren once again, because you have like, he's one of those that I feel like I get wrong constantly unless he's in a good matchup. I loved him against Arizona. I've loved him a couple times when he's gone off, and I have disliked him several other times when he has gone off. So he's one of those, like, I keep on like trying to pick my spots, and then he just gets it done.
What's worked for me is to just play him every week he's active, and I don't think it's worked out poorly for me yet. So
yeah, exactly. It just works to play him. So maybe I'll adjust at some point. All right. Detroit running backs against Chicago. Any interest in either David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, this is like what I was saying, where like neither really pops as a great play or a great value, but I could just easily see one of them hitting. And I really don't have too much to add beyond that. I will say Gibbs stands out more. Click on receiving right there. I don't know if you're in full season or last 5 weeks, but
it's 5 weeks.
Way more susceptible through the pass than the run. So like minus 3.0 fantasy points per game below expectation against the run, +3 basically through the air. So definitely profiles as a Gibbs game. That would be my lean.
Okay. You don't care about the revenge spot for David Montgomery?
Man, I don't know. I last time this happened, Montgomery let Gibbs score a touchdown. So He was like, hey, Rook, you want it?
No. You're misremembering because we talked about it on the
Oh
show.
no.
You're misremembering because of we had the conversation. It was the week before, and I said the only way that I'm factoring in is maybe he wouldn't do that against the Bears, and I don't know what. I don't think they have a great game
Okay. Hey,
anyway.
maybe. I still kind of prefer Gibbs, but
all right, that's fair.
Who knows? Like I said, it's tough. This is tough. That's the trickiest thing about Detroit's offense.
All right, so here is an ugly play that I'm considering here. Austin Eckler. I know Brandon Staley came out and said they're going to try different things at running back. Do you believe him? Do you believe that they're going to mix it up in the Chargers?
Yeah, I don't think it's really going to amount to much. The bigger issue for me is like Eckler legitimately looks like a slug on tape.
I know that is true.
His target volume has plummeted. He's not good. He's not playing well. So I wouldn't do that, but I think you're right in that, it is Austin Eckler and no one's going to play him. I have other plays I like.
All right. That's fair. Is this one of those, like, it's so ugly, he's 7,600, nobody's going to want to play him. And I feel like teams can get it done on the ground against the Broncos. So I'm a little bit intrigued.
That's right. I don't know. He just doesn't strike me as a value at all. So I'm going to be off of him. And I hate playing hurt players. I really try not to ever play injured players. So like, I wouldn't play him until like he has a game where he makes me reevaluate things. And I think we're several weeks removed from that.
Okay. He needs to prove it to you before you're willing to play him again.
Yeah. This guy, Brad Moore, keeps I keep saying something and then I look at the comments and he says it right before me. So shout out Brad Moore.
That's funny. Nice job, Brad. All right, let me open it up to you now. Like, are there any running backs who you love on this slate?
Yeah, James Cook for sure.
James Cook. All right.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is going to play him. And so, like I said, I love Josh Allen, but for lineups where I don't have Josh Allen, he makes a ton of sense. If you look at like how his usage has changed with Joe Brady taking the reins at OC, his snap share has actually dropped a little bit, but the big thing that's changed is now he's like a bell cow inside the red zone when before he was at like 25% of the snaps. And that's massive for an offense like Buffalo, where we should expect them to be scoring a lot of touchdowns. And so just no one's on him. He's leverage on the game that offers the highest total of the slate. He has big playability. He's looked good in my opinion. And no one's really on that. So I think he's sneaky.
Chris says about Eckler, he's going to retire and be on the show next year. Hope so. We would welcome Austin Eckler onto the show.
We had him on the Fantasy Points show this offseason.
Oh, did you really?
He's so perfect for radio.
Yeah, he is. All right. So you really like James Cook. Anybody else that you want to throw out there?
I think Keaton Mitchell makes sense. Remember what I was saying about just going super cheap on running backs? That's always interesting. You play him in CEH and you're just betting that or hoping that he's like their Devon A-Chain light. And if you look at snap shares in their last game before the bye, he had a season high 43%. Gus Edwards was at a near season low, like 25%. So
I've got it up on the screen. 46.4% is what I have in the bell cow report for Keaton Mitchell.
Easily a season high for him. Led in carries, led in targets. Again, it's like so thin, but he's what, 4,200?
Let's see. Keaton Mitchell is sort by team
4,900, 3%. 4% projected ownership. So just a viable punt, maybe he breaks off a long run. He's averaging 9.3 yards per carry this season. You could also play Gus Edwards, like your boy. Maybe he just scores multiple touchdowns. He can still not hit value, even if he scores multiple touchdowns. But
true. 26% snap share in the last game for Gus Edwards. Like that was the two things he had going for him were he's very efficient. He doesn't really do anything through the air, but like he was getting so many carries for a while that he made a lot of sense. Now it's like he's third in the pecking order. He played the third, actually the fourth most snaps of if you include Ricard there.
I will say like his snap share has kind of just fluctuated wildly.
True. It kind of always has throughout his career, I feel
Yeah.
like. Any interest in these Bears running backs? Any of the three of them?
Oh, I'm just avoiding that. It looks like a three-headed committee to me, so I don't see any upside.
Yeah, I just looking at the last game, Roschon Johnson 75, and I know Deontay Foreman was out, so I want to say that up front. I know Deontay Foreman was out, but are we sure that Deontay Foreman comes back and plays a real role here? Do you think this is just the game, like that specific game, Roschon Johnson made sense?
He benefits from negative game scripts, so it would make sense that he would do well on this. I don't know. I just don't play guys in a three-headed committee.
Okay.
They cannibalize each other's upside. It makes it harder to predict. And yeah, I would just avoid that personally, but who knows?
So yeah,
one of those guys could do it.
Sometimes I like leaning into that unpredictability, particularly in.
You think that's because you're an MME player and I'm not? Because like
maybe, but I mean, I do. Yes, I do think that factors into it. Like if you're playing 5 lineups, you're a lot less likely to play, like if I'm playing 150 lineups, I'm willing to take shots on, like, if it's a 3-headed monster and it's in a good matchup, like all 3 of them sprinkle throughout my lineups.
Right.
Whereas if I'm playing 5 lineups, I'm not. So yeah, absolutely. That is a factor, is how many lineups you're playing before it makes sense to play those guys. I think in this case, my favorite would be Roschon just because of the 75% snap share. So I think in this case, like if I were playing 20 lineups, I think I might consider at least one with Roschon in there. Probably not more than that. Probably one Roschon lineup out of 20 would be enough. And what do we have? We have the ownership at 0.2%. So that would be, you're just playing 1 in 20, you're playing 5%. So yeah, it's not like something I want to go overboard with. Just want to hear your thoughts on, like, is there any chance he retains the role that he had in the last game, even with Deontay Foreman coming back? And I think that, like, your response, like, it's probably all 3 of them are going to be involved and it's ugly. That is probably correct, but just, something that I'm at least considering for large field stuff. All right. We talked about
Chuba Hubbard's interesting.
All right. I mean, he had a great game last time out.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we've got him at 7.8% ownership. So it's
interesting.
At that ownership, it's probably less.
Well, you could stack him with Panthers defense, which is going to be contrarian. Same thing as Javonte and Josh Jacobs to me. And honestly, I definitely at ownership, I like him the most of those 3. He's hit 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games. Panthers are the 4th most run-heavy offense over the last 3 weeks. His involvement in the backfield has grown increasingly over the last 3 weeks, 50% to 61% to 73%. 3 of his 4 best games by XFP came with Thomas Brown calling the plays, and Brown has only called plays in 4 games this season. In games with Brown calling plays, 15.4 XFP per game. That's like low end RB1. With Brown, that falls to 9.1. I just think he's interesting because no one's on that. But realistically, even though this is now one of the most RB centric offenses in football, it's still not a very good offense. But I do think he warranted a shout out. And maybe especially with, Carr banged up and injuries everywhere. Again, that stack with Panthers defense isn't so bad.
Okay. That is fair. I was skipping right past him. I was like, well, that's a spot that just doesn't look that great in the tools, but you're right. I mean, we have 4% chance being optimal, which is not nothing.
I'd be more likely to have him than Javonte or Jacobs. And I think they're all kind of the same play to me.
Well, that's dumb. Come on. It's Javonte. It's Javonte all day. All right. Yeah. Here's the other side of the Austin Eckler bit. So I assume that you're not interested in playing like Josh Kelly, like take Brandon Staley at his word and play like Josh Kelly or Isaiah Spiller or something. Like, think they might get more involved.
Chuba Hubbard has more 20 plus fantasy point games the last 2 weeks than Javonte has all season.
Scott didn't like that I called him dumb, so we had to go find stats.
Javonte's scored 13 fantasy points only twice this entire year. Chuba Hubbard is smashing that. So, no, I love a good debate. I feel like Skip Bayless right now. Yeah, I
Sharp. I know that's an old thing, those two together, but
Stephen A. Smith. Come on.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right. All those talking heads that yell at each other.
Yeah, this is like a sticking point for me. Is I really try to avoid committee backfields, and like especially guys who are projected to get like 20% of the backfield. But I mean, he did kind of hit in week 1, and then he sucked when he was a bell cow with Eckler out. Yeah, I just never play guys like that. I know it's worked out well for you though, but that could just go back to the MME distinction where it doesn't make sense for a hand builder, but could make sense for an MME. I don't know.
I mean, I like plays like that. I did do even when I was hand building like 5 lineups occasionally, and it rarely does work out, to be clear. But one
the
way
payoff is big when a guy is so cheap and low owned, right?
Yeah, I don't know that I don't think I'm actually going to Josh Kelly because I think I'm playing Austin Eckler instead this week. I just want to get your thoughts on like if there's any like maybe they actually do play him 50% of snaps, but definitely a pretty thin play there. Oh yeah, the only other one I want to talk about is Seattle. So we have both Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker questionable. If one of them sits and the other is active, are you going to have interest? And currently we have Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker out, but we have no idea what is actually going to happen there. So do you have any thoughts on the Seattle backfield?
Yeah, I told our subscribers, like, I'll give you guys an update in Discord tomorrow morning when we get news. It looks like both are going to play, but obviously, yeah, if one of them's out staring at a bell cow workload, even if a little banged up, they get interesting. Honestly, I just haven't put enough thought to it, spent too much time, with other analysis, but yeah, I'll have something tomorrow.
Anything else about running backs, or should we move on to wide receivers?
No, we're about to talk about the best play of the entire slate, who I think is going to be contrarian.
At wide receiver, we're talking about?
Yeah, but do you want to do the plugs? I wanted to grab a drink real quick.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the only plugs I have, and I've already said this, but the link is in the description of this video if you want to check out the Stokastic sims. If you want to check out any of our packages, they are in the that was a good tease, as Mateo says. Scott, you tease. Yeah, that was a great tease by Scott, setting it up and then going away for a minute. The links are in the description of this video. You can get access to these Stokastic sims. They have been crushing. We've had so many people crush in both NBA, NFL, all that stuff. The links are in the description of this video. One thing that we never talk about on this show, I talk about it everywhere else, but like Stokastic has lineup generators for $14.95 per week for both NBA and NFL. And those are lineups that have gone through the Stokastic sims. I always say you should run it as close to lock as possible. You do it today, you're not getting the best stuff. You do it tomorrow, close to lock, you're getting lineups that are plus EV in the Stokastic sims at those times. So you can find that in the description of this video as well. A cheaper way to get access to our powerful tools, just $14.95 per week. And that includes main slates, every primetime showdown slate, both DraftKings and FanDuel, all that there. And of course, as I said earlier, but Scott, do you want to, since you're back, before we give the best play on the slate, do you want to give any shouts to the Fantasy Points tools?
Yeah, don't subscribe to Fantasy Points. Subscribe next week. We're going to do our early bird, which means you get the rest of 2023 free. There's still 8 more DFS slates left, 8 more betting slates left if you count the postseason. And then you're going to get 2024 at our best price. It's not going to be cheaper at any other point. So next week, subscribe to Fantasy Points. Honestly, if you like really wanted to subscribe today, you could probably put something in like a customer service request and we'll hook you up. But next week, check out Fantasy Points early bird special.
Perfect. Yeah, that was what a great plug. Don't subscribe to our tools. That is one way to sell. Love it. Love to hear. Love the honesty that Scott brings to the show. All right. Starting with the highest you want to get right into the best play on the slate, Scott?
Yeah.
All right.
I was wrong. DJ Moore, 16%. Looks like your ownership projections are good, but he's a lock button play for me. He's the number one play for me in cash. And it was weird, like, ETR, plenty other sites, weren't really talking about him or didn't have him ranked like anywhere near as much of like a must play that I'm viewing him as. So I was kind of hoping he would go lower owned, but still 16% is a lot lower than the ownership I'm going to have. Just absolutely insane production and volume with Justin Fields. Here's what he's done over his last 6 full games with, or Justin Fields' last 6 full games. 25, 23, 52, 30, 13, 19 DraftKings fantasy points. That's 27 fantasy points per game, or 32.5 over his last 4. He's priced as just the wide receiver 16 in those games with Fields as the starter. He has a 41% first read target rate that would lead all receivers. That's 55% since week 12. He did well in this matchup a couple of weeks ago. I think he's just like a no-brainer must play.
Was he the player? He was a player we were talking about.
Yeah. When I looked at it yesterday, I looked around the industry. He was like 7%, which just like infuriated me. So credit to you guys for 16%.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely makes sense as a player. I said earlier that I would probably only play him in game stacks, and I particularly like him in Fields lineups because it feels like whenever DJ Moore, and I know we've said the same thing you said earlier in the year, the same thing about Cole Kmet. Like anytime he goes off, Fields goes off too, or maybe it was actually the inverse with Kmet. I don't remember, but either way, like would you play much of DJ Moore?
Lock button. Hit the lock button.
It doesn't matter who you're playing at quarterback. You're just playing some DJ Moore. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I just want to respond to Zach Everhart too. Scott already subscribed to the data suite. Does that include the Discord you speak of? Yeah. If you want full access to the Discord, that is a Fantasy Points premium subscription or our all-in package. And so you can get all of Johnny's thoughts. What Johnny does a great job of is I'll talk up a lot of players, and then he'll just be like, no, don't play that guy. Don't play that guy. Scott's right on that guy. Go all in, actually. And you'll get access to my article and the Sunday update video that Johnny and I do Sunday mornings.
That comes with the data suite?
That's with the Fantasy Points premium subscription or all in package.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the Discord comes with the, if you just sign up for the data suite, do you get access to the Discord, or is that a different package also?
No, that's only with standard, and then premium gives you full access to the Discord, which includes DFS. But we're rolling out an all-in package next week. So if you have the data package already, you might as well just do that, because it's only, I don't know, $40 more expensive than premium plus data. And then you get access to college football content and projections, XFL college projections and content. Shout out Jake Tribby, you're wearing the XFL hat. Jake Tribby's an XFL GOAT. I think we have the best XFL projections. Jake won.
I did a show with Jake on your channel. I watched it. It was XFL.
I spend more time watching that than any XFL game.
Yeah, they did 2 hour long shows a lot of the time, or at least the one I was on was 2 hours long. Yeah, those guys are nuts about their.
Well,
XFL.
you made your name in XFL streets, right?
I mean, yeah, it was my second 6-figure win was an XFL win. I wouldn't say I
didn't even know they had 6-figure payouts in XFL. That's awesome.
Didn't for very long. Yeah. Sadly, I believe the XFL is dead. I believe that they have rebranded. They teamed up with the USFL. Latest I heard is they're going to be the UFL going forward. So. Sadly.
Oh, okay. I don't know how I feel about that.
David asking, any live before lock for NBA Showdown tonight? The answer is no. We got the night off. Me and EMAC nobody's doing NBA live before lock. So I just want to answer that for David. All right. Back to as much as I could talk about XFL and XFL content all day, Scott, but I suppose we should talk about more than just one wide receiver.
Real football. Yeah.
No, come on, Scott. All right. Who else? All right, let's sort by ownership. So you already talked about the second highest owned. You love DJ Moore. You're locking DJ Moore. That was a good, easy answer, easy to follow. What about Brandon Ayuk, Keenan Allen, Michael Pittman? I feel like we talk about the wide receivers to some extent when we're talking about the quarterbacks already, so we don't need to get as in depth. But do you have any notes you want to add about any of these high owned wide receivers?
I'll say Rashee Rice is very close to a lock button play. I think he's must play for cash. Like I said, he's seemingly supplanted Travis Kelce as the number one receiver these last few weeks. He's out targeted him in both games. He's been awesome all season. He ranks top 10 in yards per route run. Every other Chiefs wide receiver ranks bottom 10. He's still capped at a 66% route share, but at least now, the target volume's there. And he's more or less delivering on it. So I really like him this week. 5,400, just mispriced. Keenan Allen, it's so hard to argue against. Like Baltimore double team. John Harbaugh admitted he double teamed him the entire game, and he still had 14 catches in that game. He's had 100 receiving yards or more, 14 or more targets in 3 of his last 4 games. They have no one else. Eckler's a slug. Quentin Johnson stinks. Jalen Guyton's a nobody. And so like I could easily see him smashing. The hole you could poke in him is that he's been running on the perimeter more. Probably at most like 40%. But Patrick Surtain's going to shadow him on those 40%. And then in the slot, Denver's been elite against the slot all year. That's a hole you could poke in it. I don't know that it really matters when a guy's getting 14 catches in double coverage.
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk, awesome play. Definitely, like last week it was tough picking between Debo and Ayuk, but like it doesn't feel tough when Ayuk is just 100 more. But I mean, hey, that opens up an opportunity to play Debo instead. Like Debo destroys Seattle historically. So, but again, that's just one of those situations where like I, as an analyst, have nothing to contribute because it really is just roll a 3-sided die and kind of have exposure or mix exposure, or maybe it's just a Christian McCaffrey game. Again, sorry for not being too helpful there. Pittman's awesome. Pittman's a great play. I will say at ownership, I definitely like Downs more. Downs coming in at 7% for you. So about half that of Pittman. And so last week I kind of warned caution on Downs, who I did love, but it was a reverse slot funnel matchup. So it like Pittman was in a way better spot. This is now a slot funnel matchup. So Downs is in the much better spot. But like we started off is like maybe Alec Pierce gets involved more and it just like crushes Downs upside because he was like a PPR cheat code slot wide receiver, but he was also getting deep balls. So like if there is an Alec Pierce resurgence, that would be negative to him, but still like in 8 healthy games with Minshew starting, he's averaging 8.5 targets per game, 13.5 fantasy points per game, 4,900, really strong value, great slot matchup.
Okay. I feel like I had something I wanted to respond to, and then I got distracted. So we're gonna move on. I'm not gonna respond to it. Oh yeah, I had pulled up the. I just want to bring up the Alec Pierce part, which you brought up, that he maybe is a new wrinkle here, that he 87% route participation, way up from where he had been. Like he seemed to have lost favor, and now he's maybe back in that wide receiver 2 role. But you prefer Downs over Alec Pierce, it sounds like.
Yeah, go back to that.
All right. Yep.
This is the concern, because look at that. He had 6 air yards versus 149 to Alec Pierce.
Yeah, wow.
That's bad. Again, this was like Tennessee worst in the league at defending the deep ball, bottom 3 against outside wide receivers. When all their corners are healthy, they're top 6 against the slot. So it wasn't a matchup that like suggested Downs would smash, or like it makes sense maybe for this sort of usage. And now it's like a nuts slot funnel where Pittman's going to get shadowed by Chidobe Awuzie. But you know, hey, I could see Pierce hitting, but I will say Downs is my lean, and I'm just hoping that it was entirely a function of matchup last week.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Here, I'm going to sort by salary. Let's talk about or I guess you'd like when we sort by ownership a little bit more. So maybe that's go back here. High owned plays.
Garrett Wilson, Drake London, I think are really strong values. Garrett Wilson with Zach Wilson, their last, 6 games is like you're getting high end wide receiver 3 or top 3 wide receiver volume at a wide receiver 3 salary. The problem is like he could still easily not hit and have no ceiling because Zach Wilson stinks. Drake London, interesting stat is he averages over twice as many yards per game at home rather than on the road, 74 yards per game. Really good matchup for him. Really strong value. But all these guys and Downs as well, like they're not ceiling plays. So like if you want to get off them for tournaments, I get that. It's just, but again, like we've been saying, it's a kind of a gross slate. So I get why these guys are standing out, and I pretty much agree with it.
Okay. Man, Jonathan Mingo getting 9.4% ownership. Can't say I saw that coming.
I get it, honestly.
Yeah, I
he
mean,
has five. Last 2 weeks, he has 5 times as many receiving yards as Adam Thielen. Out targets him 16-9. I know he stinks, but like that's just crazy volume. Do last 2 weeks.
10 targets last week. Okay. Yeah, 16-9.
129 yards to 27. Like, what happened to Adam Thielen? My goodness.
I love it from a best ball perspective. It is too late. Nothing. It's not going to like get any of my lineups to advance that weren't already. But at least I feel vindicated in drafting so much Jonathan Mingo and 0 Adam Thielen. Now we just need DJ Chark to go off for like 3 touchdowns, 200 yards this week. Maybe I'll advance one more lineup in best ball. All right. Mike Evans this week.
Yeah. I'm worried about AJ Terrell, questionable. I think it's looking like he plays. If he's not playing, he's an awesome play. Although I did say this the last Atlanta matchup. I'm like, no, I'm not playing Evans against AJ Terrell. And he did have that one sick catch. I think AJ Terrell might have fallen down or something on the play, but I mean, he could still get there. I just I have a lot of respect for AJ Terrell. So if he plays, I'm probably not gonna go that route.
You already talked about Drake London, right?
Yeah.
A question about Drake London.
Great matchup. He's had a 20% target share in like almost every game this year. Way more productive on at home than on the road. But if you want to say he doesn't have any upside, even in this top 5 matchup, hard to argue against that.
Let me just open it up to you. I do have a few that I want to bring up, but I want to see if you bring any of them up naturally, or if I just want to hear your thoughts on who do you like as far as contrarian wide receivers go.
Yeah, I worry about the Seattle or Geno Smith injury, but I think Lockett and JSN are both really interesting. JSN had 11 targets, 3 more than Metcalf or Lockett last week. He had the 6th most XFP of any wide receiver. If not for one play negated due to penalty, he would have scored 26.7 DraftKings fantasy points. He's not priced as if that he did actually score that 40-yard touchdown, and he's not owned like it. I think that we'd look at things differently if that was the case.
That wasn't a penalty, was it? Wasn't it just they reversed the call? Or are we
I honestly don't remember.
Okay, all right, doesn't matter, I guess.
45-yard touchdown catch that overturned or negated.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Tyler Lockett is just like, he's 1,100 cheaper than Metcalf, and he's basically the exact same play. The only difference, like same volume, the only difference is like Metcalf just hit his touchdown regression game. He was due for a touchdown regression game, and Lockett still hasn't hit his. And so 5,600, I like him. I think there's upside there in a game. Seattle should lean pass heavy, especially with the running back injuries. And it's a good on paper matchup for all 3 guys.
We just got word that Geno Smith is tracking to be a game time decision. So it's those are players that you would only have interest in if he ends up playing, or would you play any of the Seattle receivers with a backup quarterback?
Maybe I'll make a YOLO Drew Lock lineup. I like that more than a Zach Wilson lineup. But on outside of that as like a YOLO large field GPP play, no, I'd be off of them.
Okay. All right. Who else? Who else do you want to talk about, if anybody? Or I can throw some names at you.
Well, I was super high on Elijah Moore, expecting Amari Cooper to sit out. But I think now that Amari Cooper's back, I think Amari is a legitimately interesting play. You could still play Elijah. Like maybe that's just Flacco's boy. He's pretty cheap. But Flacco did lock on to Amari prior to his injury in the early second quarter of that game. And, Elijah had the most air yards of any receiver in any game this season last week, but like, it's not like that connection was working. And so I think he's interesting. I don't think anyone's going to play him. And then super contrarian wide receivers. Nico Collins. love me some Nico. This
I
was
mean,
the
you already
cheat code.
talked about liking CJ Stroud as a sub 1% owned, I believe. CJ Stroud. Is that just too obvious? Just go CJ Stroud, Nico Collins?
Well, I think that's the best argument against Nico. I mean, against Stroud, is that you could just capture all the upside by playing Nico. I mean, like Nico had.
What about your boy Noah Brown? Isn't he coming back?
Well, he came back last week. I think from what I'm hearing, is like he's seriously banged up, and he's really hard to trust. I mean, you could still sprinkle in some exposure. Like there's massive upside there when healthy, especially now with Tank Dell out. But you know me, I don't like playing injured players, and I think it's pretty bad with him.
Okay.
But with Nico, yeah, I mean, like the biggest cheat code in DFS since week 9 is play minimum of 1 Texans wide receiver on every single lineup. And now Tank Dell's out, further concentrating things. Jets defense, obviously, is like the worst possible matchup, but they have shown some signs of cracking in recent weeks. They've given up 75 or more receiving yards to wide receiver 1s in 5 of their last 6 games, as well as big games to wide receiver 2s, Khalil Shakir and Jalen Waddle over their last 2 games. Both had over 22 DraftKings fantasy points. And I just think like CJ Stroud might just be a kingmaker, where it's like, it doesn't matter who he's throwing to, doesn't matter the matchup. He's going to get it done. And so I like him a lot at contrarian ownership.
Brandon Katz, Nico Collins is not contrarian receiver. He's off a huge week. Nico isn't contrarian at all. No, we've got him at 3% ownership. I don't think and I don't think anybody's given Nico a ton of ownership. He's up to 7,600. Always funny the Brandon Katz takes. No, that is objectively a contrarian receiver. All right.
Appreciate you. OBJ, I like, which I never thought I'd say. I'm like his biggest hater as a Giants fan. Since week 8, he ranks behind only Tyreek Hill in XFP per route run. He has exactly as many targets as Zay Flowers, despite running 55% of as many routes as Zay Flowers since week 8.
Yeah. I'm just I'm just pulling up what I have available. I just want to see what. So this is just their last game. This is in their last game, 5 targets, which is not bad.
But look at the route share, 33%. Yeah. And so like that's what's been happening with him, is like really low route share, not a full-time player, but like insane XFP per route run. And just like the argument you could make there is because he's had multiple shoulder injuries, a knee injury, and maybe now after the team's bye, he could be a full-time player. If not him, you could play Rashad Bateman at 3,200. I think he's fine. He ran over twice as many routes as OBJ in their last game. I just kind of like that argument, that upside argument for OBJ more.
Okay. Interesting. 3,800 OBJ. Yeah, we've got him neutral, 4.6% ownership, 4.5% optimal. So looks okay there too.
Gabe Davis, 0.2% is like stupid, I think. Like I said, wide receiver 2s against Kansas City has been such a cheat code this year.
So you are back to Gabe Davis as and I don't know if you ever swayed from this, but I was getting to the point where I was like, oh wait, Khalil Shakir seemed to have overtaken him, like in terms of route participation.
No, I said that, and then Gabe was on the winning Millie Maker lineup that week.
I mean, like last week he had a big game, right? It wasn't Gabe, or am I thinking it was that 2 weeks ago? It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, whatever that week was.
12 targets last week. Oh no, that was week 12. They didn't play last week. They were on bye.
Right.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. Their last game, 12 targets. And honestly, I was so close to bringing him up, Scott. But I was at that point like, I think he's just a wide receiver 3, and he's more expensive than Shakir. And Shakir was low owned, so I was like, nah, Shakir is like, he's the guy. Like he's inexpensive and low owned. Might as well just go there. So I didn't bring up Gabe Davis because relative to Shakir, it didn't make any sense to me. And then of course he went off.
Yeah, I had the exact same take. I was 100% with you. I was like, oh, it's all right, time to write off Gabe Davis. And so I guess, maybe that was wrong, but like nuts matchup this week. And then Parker Washington, I think, is like a legitimately awesome play. The dude is minimum priced in the Christian Kirk role. He was sick last week, 6 catches, 6 targets, 61 yards, a touchdown. And the Browns are like a bit of a slot funnel. Obviously, like there's some uncertainty there with the health of Trevor Lawrence, but I don't know. I think he's an awesome play.
You like Parker Washington better than Zay Jones?
Yeah, I think so. I wrote up Zay Jones and I kind of just deleted him because I liked Parker more. I mean, stone minimum, hard to argue against that. And like maybe the Christian Kirk slot role is just more valuable than the Zay Jones clear out role.
Sure.
But I mean, MME player, play both.
Yeah, you can sprinkle them both into your lineups if you're MME. All right, who else? Who else do you want to throw out there? I'll sort by ownership.
I don't think I got anyone. There's like a bunch of fringe guys, but no one I'm super excited to play. Obviously, like sort by salary. Yeah, like I don't have a ton of conviction on Jefferson, St. Brown, Evans, Chase, Diggs, Adams, Puka. Like I didn't write up any of those guys.
I feel like this is why I'm funneling more toward like pay up at running back this week is because I'm like, I mean, these guys all look fine, but they're just not like, oh my God, they're going to absolutely smash in this spot. It's more like,
exactly. It's hard to pick between them. And I really don't have, anything helpful here. Sorry.
I told Greg this on the earlier show. I kind of think that for these expensive receivers, I'm largely going to be playing them either with their quarterback or as the run back for the opposing, like generally going to be in stacks for me, is how I'm going to be utilizing.
I think that's smart. I think that's the way to do it.
All right, let me think of who. All right, I wanted to bring up the Denver guys because I told you how much interest I have in just stacking that game up, stacking Russ. We've got Cortland Sutton coming in at 8.5% ownership. And then we have Jerry Jeudy's just 4,700. I know he is, as Steve Smith says, a jag, but 7% ownership, 10% optimal in our tools. I kind of like doing that stack. Do you have any interest in any of the Denver receivers?
No, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep fading.
All right, so you're just wrong about Denver this week, is what I'm hearing.
Damn, I just keep fading them and wait for one of them to prove me wrong because they're chalk every week, and they've just yet to prove me wrong. So I anxiously await the week where they burn me, but it hasn't happened yet.
Have they really not hit? Sutton has gotten there. He has to have gotten there at least once, right?
I mean, he's hit value, but he's never like hurt you for not playing him. Really, he's had one game or season high of 21.1 DraftKings fantasy points. I mean, the dude's scoring an insane amount of touchdowns. He's hit a touchdown in every game but 3. So it's like with none over one game. So it's like he's not going to hurt you if you play him, but he's yet to hurt you if you didn't play him.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't know. It wasn't high on my list.
Okay. All right.
DJ Moore, 6,500, must play.
DJ Moore, you're must play. You're not in with me. I am on the Broncos guys, but I'm also stacking up that game. And it does feel like a game where like I'm going to go all in and then they're going to score 13 points. It very much has that feel to me, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm still going to those Denver guys and just hoping that this is finally the week that they hurt the people who don't play them.
Hey, let's do it. Let's make that one of our lineups.
Because, so you'll be forced to have one share.
Yeah, and that's worked out well for us so far. Is like the ones where we butt heads on.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
And then one other name that I wanted to throw at you, just because I teased this earlier, looking at how bad the Lions over the past 5 weeks have been against slot receivers. And I know that you have interest in Justin Fields. Any consideration to going to Darnell Mooney this week?
You know, I looked at it. I saw the same thing you were seeing, and I'm like, damn, that's such a good matchup. I don't know. I wouldn't go there just because like I have blinders on for DJ Moore, insane first read target share, and then after that he's still like very much locking out. Like if it's anyone else, I feel like it's Komet, but it is the nuts matchup.
Yeah, it is a nuts matchup, and we like the Fields part of it. So I'm just thinking like maybe it's a way to get contrarian within Fields stacks kind of thing, but. Yeah, I think I will have some of it. I don't know if I'm gonna. We'll see. We'll see how much I know. I was also like specifically trying to find cheap wide receivers that will allow me to pay up at running back just to get what I think is going to be a little bit of a flip the script kind of build. So he was one of those that kind of stood out to me. I was like, yeah, I could see it. I can see it. All right. And then any Saints receivers? I guess. We are expecting Olave to play, right? So that's
yeah.
We have Rashid Shaheed out once again. We might have Taysom out. just trying to think of like, is A.T. Perry, is that going to be a thing, or Lynn Bowden?
I could see Olave getting there. It's just no one else. He's been on fire his last 8 healthy quarters. Would have preferred if Jameis Winston was the starting quarterback, which it like definitely should be. But yeah, I mean, like not super high on my list. I wrote him up as like one of my favorite plays, and then they said Derek Carr's back, and I was like, screw it. And he missed practice all week with an illness.
Arch Stanton says, Otani, can you dig it? Yeah, I can dig it. What do you think? Do you watch baseball at all, Scott? Do you have any?
I actually started in the industry as a baseball analyst and haven't followed it at all since. Yeah, what, 750 million to the Dodgers?
700, I think, is what I saw.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Over 10 years, so 70 million a year.
Wow,
man, what a score! Good for him. I love Otani. Like I don't follow baseball as closely as football or basketball, but I still I do content on all summer. I play fantasy, DFS, MLB. So and Otani, I think, is one of my favorite baseball players. Like, he's just kind of a incredible player, goofball. I just like him, so I'm happy for him. Good for Otani.
Most exciting player, in like 40 years, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Excluding the steroid years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you include the home run mashers, like maybe you can make a case. But yeah, he's fun. All right, I think that we have talked about everybody. Let me just I thought there was somebody just brought up, or maybe I just saw them here. Oh, Khalil Shakir. So we talked about Gabe Davis. Are you going back to Shakir at all, or do you think Dawson Knox like cuts into him enough that's
nuts coverage shell matchup? I just really worry about Dawson Knox, but if they stick to the 11 personnel they've been sticking to, he's a nuts play. He's like one of the best values of the slate. That uncertainty scared me off of him.
I just had this thought for the first time, so let me look up, what did Jameson Williams do last week? I know we came into last week and we were thinking I was thinking maybe Jameson Williams is, and they had said that he's going to be, the ball is going to gravitate toward him. He had a rushing touchdown last week. 60% route participation over the past 2 weeks. So that's another, if you're looking for cheap options within a game environment that we like, I actually kind of think Jameson Williams is interesting. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I can't disagree. I probably won't end up on my rosters, but like 3,500 for the upside he offers as like an insane big play threat definitely makes a ton of sense. Oh,
and then my Vikings. People keep talking about any interest in Justin Jefferson. He's down to 8,500, 6.2% ownership. Haven't seen him with Josh Dobbs yet. This will be their first game together. Any interest in Jefferson, or do you agree with Katz that maybe Jefferson gets doubled and Jordan Addison benefits? Are you playing any of these Vikings wide receivers?
Definitely not Addison. Hawkinson would make the most sense. He has the nuts coverage shell matchup, and that's really been Dobbs' guy. Jefferson, I mean, I could see it. Best wide receiver in football, arguably 80 or second best after Tyreek, 8,500. It's kind of just like the same thing as Chase, though, where, injection of uncertainty, definitely median projection has to come down with the backup. But I mean, like, hey, Chase had a good game last week. I just don't think he still has the, break the slate upside that maybe Keenan Allen has.
Sure. All right. That's fair. Anything else that you want to say about wide receivers before we take a look at tight ends?
I don't think so. A bunch of guys I looked at, thought about writing up, but just weren't strong enough for me.
All right. I think we talked about plenty. All right. Tight ends. And we have, as far as ownership goes, 3 getting double digits, and then Kyle Pitts. I mean, we have 5 right at double digits. Kittle, Kelsey, Njoku, Pitts, and Isaiah Likely are our highest owned tight ends. How do you feel about any of these that you want to full fade? Anybody that you love of these top 5?
Yeah, it's not how I'd have it. I'd have Brevin Jordan 1.
In terms of what you expect his ownership to be?
No, like just in terms of like who I want to play. Probably Brevin Jordan 1, Isaiah Likely 2, and Njoku with Flacco and with. I mean, if DTR starts, Njoku might be like the number 1, but I think it's going to be Flacco, and Amari Cooper's back, so I'm a little less excited to play him. Kittle, yeah, just massive upside. Uniquely massive upside at the position. Kelce, I kind of poured some cold water on him, but I get it. It's Travis Kelce, right? It's a great game environment. He owns the Bills.
Do you agree with the statement that it's kind of an ugly slate for tight ends? I don't know if that was what I think Greg said, and then I'm like, I don't know that it's ugly. It's just hard for me to differentiate, which maybe does make it ugly. It's just like these all look like a lot of fine plays to me. Nobody that I'm like, that looks awesome. I want to play a ton of that tight end. It's more like similar to what I said with the high end receivers. I'm going to be pairing the tight end with my quarterback or in a game stack a lot of the time. It's hard for me. I guess it sounds like you like Brevin Jordan, even outside of game stacks, maybe more than I do.
Yeah, no, I think he's a sick play. I think he's your cash tight end of the week. I think he's awesome value. Isaiah Likely is a good play. It's a favorable matchup against the Jets, but it's also like a tight end funnel matchup. CJ Stroud has just been insane this year, and Noah Brown isn't fully healthy. I think he had like.
Is he the number 2 pass catcher for the Texans in your mind?
Well, he was last week. Nico Collins had 188 yards, but then Brevin Jordan had 50 more than the next closest Texans receiver. So he was fully in the Dalton Schultz role. And so that one's easy for me. Likely there's a little more uncertainty just because we did see him flop week 1 without Mark Andrews. But he was great in his last game. And he gets like the nuts tight end funnel matchup against the Rams. Also good schematic matchup for tight ends. So 3,500 for him. That's another value.
All right. Any other tight ends that you want to throw out there?
Komed's biggest games have come with, or his best performances came with Tyson Bagent, but he still has like unique upside for his 4,300 price tag. Kyle Pitts, like I know, like you look at that ownership and you're like, that's bad, but his usage last week was awesome. He had a season high target share, nearly 30%. That was up from that's more than double his league average rate. 87% route share. That was up from 57%. And now he has a top 3 matchup against a Tampa Bay pass funnel. So I actually think he's a fine play, even at that ownership. Tyler Conklin's fine. He hit 50 yards in like 5 of 10 games with Zach Wilson. Pretty good volume. He's just fine. But a player I like more than that would be Evan Ingram. And like I've shit on him all year in this space because he has no touchdown upside. He finally scored a touchdown, but he's still like basically 0 end zone targets, red zone targets all year. But the volume's just been great. And now you remove Christian Kirk from the equation. Even if Trevor Lawrence misses, CJ Beathard targeted Ingram on 6 of his 14 throws, 42% target share last week. That was no other Jacksonville receiver was targeted more than twice with Beathard. And so just like, Brenton Strange is going to sit out this week as well. So just like easy bet on volume. I think he's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other tight ends?
Oh, no, I don't think so. You could punt with like a Michael Mayer or the Bengals guy, Tanner Hudson.
Sure. All right. I think that's enough. I mean, we've been going for an
Laporta for upside, minutes. Whatever.
Yeah. You can obviously. Do you want to say anything about defenses, or are we ready to build some lineups?
No, let's build some lineups.
Hell yeah, we're gonna build some lineups. Millie Maker, enter. All right, and we're gonna start. I mean, we talked about it, so let's just start there. The one that I'm forcing you to build with Russell Wilson. And I'm going to go with the Jag right away. Throw him in there with Russell Wilson. This will be a cheap start for us with Judy and Wilson. What else do I want to throw in here to force you to play? I know you like to use your veto when I go too deep in these. I'll just start there. I'll start there. What do you want to add to this one?
Well, Keenan.
Yep, I thought about putting Keenan right in there too. Let's see.
I feel like if we're going to lean into this, we might as well lean
Like
massively into it.
like Javante.
No, Sutton.
Oh yeah, okay.
Dub stack.
I like a dub
And then
stack.
and then Moore is a lock button, so we'll lock in Moore.
Good point. I forgot we're locking in DJ Moore.
You got to
All
pay up somewhere, so Christian McCaffrey.
We only have 45, 75
Oh,
left per
wow.
player. So let's fill in the defense first and then see if we can play McCaffrey. Bears against Jared Goff on the road. Maybe. Chiefs.
Chiefs.
All right. We'll go Chiefs. 52-33 remaining per player. Two running backs and a tight end. So the tight end is obviously another spot where we can pay down if we want to.
Let's see Brevin and CEH. Does that get us to CMC?
I bet it will. Wait, CEH is 4,200. Yep. Oh no, only 8,400. So never mind. Oh, Kamara gets us right to this build, which I don't hate. You're not a fan? You just want CMC in there?
I mean, it's fine. It's a Russ lineup, so of course I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna like it either way. Yeah, this is the lineup that we're doing, like to appease me, forcing you into some of the plays that I like. And we still got a couple. We got your Brevin Jordan, we got your DJ Moore. So like you've got your fingerprints in it, but this is like primarily my lineup. Yeah, let's just enter this one, and then we'll let you start out the next one.
All right, sounds good. Are we going to do 3 or 2 lineups today?
Let's do 3.
All right. Well, then Josh Allen or Justin Fields, or I guess
we're going to do one of each.
2. Yeah.
All right. We'll start with Josh Allen. I assume we're going Diggs.
I'd go Gabe.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then is this a double stack?
Not right now. Rashee. And then CEH or McKinnon, that could be your call. CEH is the better value, but you could say McKinnon has more upside, especially on an Allen lineup.
Let's start with CEH, and then
I think you're right.
We'll go up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do DJ Moore and Brevin, or Likely, if you want to mix it up.
I kind of do. I really like Likely this week.
All right, that works for me.
He was also
3,500.
All right. So we need a running back, a flex, and a DST for 54.33 each.
Yeah, let's do that Bears defense just to see what it gives us.
All right, 69.50 remaining for a running back and a flex.
Kyron.
We have 66 left over. All right.
Bijan? Yeah. I like it.
All right. There we go. We've got two in the bag. That was really easy. That was so fast.
That was maybe too easy. Yeah. For this one, maybe we should think about a mini stack or something.
All right. We're doing Justin Fields, DJ Moore, anybody from Detroit.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky. That's the thing that kind of stinks about Fields lineups. Do you want a dub stack with either Komet or Mooney? You could play Mooney if you want.
I kind of want to see what a Mooney lineup looks like here.
Let's do it.
And then we could go Laporta, Amon-Ra. We could go one of the running backs, Jameson. A lot of different ways to go with Detroit, or just no bring back if that is your preference.
Pull up advanced receiving.
Season or a period?
No, I want to see what they did in the last Bears game, week 11.
Week 12, you mean?
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It was week 11.
They're on bye in week 13, so they played week 12.
Oh.
Hashtag math. Or hashtag, I guess it is. I guess it's subtraction. I don't know what you call that. All right. All right, here's week. Did I do that already? Week 12, and then. All right.
No, it was week 11. Here, go to filter.
All right.
A split. Scroll down. Opponent. Hit apply. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know if I understand what you're asking. I thought you were just asking for their most recent.
So change the week to week 11.
The last game between these teams you're talking about.
Yeah. I want to look at the Lions though, not the Bears. My bad.
Oh yeah.
And so it was an Amon-Ra St. Brown target hog game. Just because this is what they did in their last game doesn't mean that's how it's going to go this game. But let's play St. Brown. Why not?
Something, yeah. All right. Wait, I'm going the wrong place here. All right. 5,000 remaining per player. Yeah, we saved some salary there with Mooney. But we got 2 running backs, a tight end, a flex, and a defense remaining.
Let's do James Cook.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get some exposure to that game.
Yep.
And then is there a mini stack you like anywhere?
Oh. All right, Zach Moss. I don't really know that.
Likely in Kyron, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Did we just do that? I think we just did that for the last one. Also.
That's awesome. Way to go, us.
Thinking about we stumbled into it. We could do that one once again. What other games do we have that are interesting?
What about Rashee Rice and the flex? Just because he's a great value. And that's a mini stack with Cook, I guess.
True. Yeah, we got a nice little mini stack there now. All right, so now we're hurting for cash. Maybe we fill in a defense here.
You want to do Brevin and a cheap defense?
Yeah, we could do that. Let's start with Brevin. Jets. I mean, Stroud has been a little bit turnover prone. Jets good defense.
Yeah. I mean, he really only has a backup tight end and one wide receiver to throw to.
All right, and then
I
like Eckler. I know you're not into the Eckler thing. What could we do here? So to get it to somebody that you want to play would be probably McCaffrey. We'd have to go up, or we could go down to Kyron and then upgrade Jets to somebody else.
I'm happy to do that. We could also swap out Cook for someone else if you want.
Let's see if we do Kyron, we swap out Jets defense, then we could do. I mean, we're not doing Lions defense. Ravens. I mean, we talked about Stafford not being good in the rain. I guess if that's something you want to factor in. Chargers, just lean into Denver sucking and you being right on that. We could do that. What do you think? Or do you want to flip things, do a 2v2 kind of thing?
Oh, my bad. You could play Ravens, but probably not with Kyron.
Oh, yeah, that is true. Well, do you want to play Kyron in this one? I guess we can start there. Do you want to play Kyron? Do you want to try to get up to Kamara or McCaffrey, and then we could downgrade Rashee Rice and play somebody super?
Yeah, screw it. Let's make a McCaffrey lineup just because we don't have one yet.
All right, we're gonna throw McCaffrey in there. Then let's take out Rashee Rice, and then we can
do a placeholder defense though.
Okay. What do you think? Super cheap. Bears.
Yeah, just go Bears. Oh no. Right.
Yeah, we aren't playing. We are playing Amon-Ra St. Brown, so we would be playing against one of our players.
Yeah, go All right, whatever. We'll figure it out.
Okay. So if we go Bears, then we can go Elijah Moore.
CEH, Drake London.
Oh yeah, CEH. If we do CEH, then we could get up to a $2,700 defense.
Or Drake London and just keep the Bears, even if it doesn't make a lot of sense.
He's too expensive.
Oh, okay.
At 100.
All right, yeah, let's go CEH and we'll upgrade the defense.
Okay.
Oh, JSN was another one.
How much is he?
4,100.
Oh, should we do that?
Yeah.
Because we have CEH in both of our lineups so far.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Go with the hyphen. Where is he?
41.
I missed him. There we go. And now we have 2,800 left over for a defense, which brings us to the Broncos against the Chargers. The Ram. Now we could go Rams. Now we are not. Or no,
let's go Broncos.
Broncos. All right, so that's we got the full-on Chicago stack with the Amon-Ra St. Brown bring back. Do we have any? We got rid of Rashee Rice, so I don't think we have any other like secondary correlations. I don't think it's not generally a huge factor for me. It's something that, you know, if it works out, it's nice. Otherwise, I think it's totally fine not having any other correlations beside the full-on game stack. I like it. I think it looks like a nice lineup. What do you think?
I like it.
Well, there you have it. We made a Josh Allen lineup. We made a Justin Fields lineup. We made a Russ Wilson lineup. One of these is going to take down the Millie. I'm sure of it. Anything else you want to talk about, Scott? Was there another lineup you think we need to make? Or are we?
No, I think we're good.
All right, we're good. All right. Well, we are just over. We just made it past the 2-hour mark, so that seems like a good time to close it out for the night. Scott, what final thoughts? Anything?
Thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, join Stokastic, join Fantasy Points.
That sounds like good advice. Yeah, sign up for all of our stuff. The links are in the description of this video for all the specific Stokastic. I don't think we have specific links to parts of Fantasy Points, but you can always find all the plans. If you just go to fantasypoints.com, it's on the top right. You can find the different plans available there. Thank you guys very much for watching. As Scott said, please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification button if you want to get alerts when our shows go live. Good luck this weekend.